The night before the final exam, I sent a message to my junior. I can't focus on studying that I just want to find someone to kiss. Lin Yu was stunned and replied instantly. Huh? I earnestly explained to him, according to studies, knowledge can be transmitted through kissing. That I, in other words, if I kiss a top student now, I'm guaranteed to pass the exam tomorrow. 5 minutes later, Lin Yu called me, slightly out of breath. He said, "Senior, I just happened to be passing by your dorm building. Do you want to come down?" I lifted my head from the heavy textbook, holding back a laugh as I asked, in a puzzled tone, "What am I supposed to come down for?" There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, then Lin Yu spoke, his voice lacking a bit of confidence. "I'm pretty good at studying, you know." I deliberately dragged out the last syllable, then asked with a tone of sudden realization, "Oh, are you offering to transfer knowledge to me?" Before he could reply, I smoothly changed the subject. "But you're only a freshman. You haven't even learned sophomore level knowledge yet." Lin Yu panicked. "I've studied it in advance." I apologized. "Oh no, but I already have someone in mind." After saying that, I quietly hid in the shadows, watching the reaction of a certain puppy downstairs. That I, in the dim light, the dejected black-haired boy stood in the wind, looking as if he might be blown away at any moment. After a long moment, a low voice emerged amidst the wind. "Am I the one Senior likes?" I pretended to ponder, counting to 3 before answering. "I think he likes me a bit more." Hearing this, Lin Yu's gaze dimmed. That answer meant Senior liked that person too. That he clutched his phone, restlessly pacing in place. If he wanted to maintain his usual image, he should offer his blessings, but he didn't want to. What he wanted was to wish for a breakup instead. Senior had once said she liked well-behaved boys. Was it because he hadn't pretended to be obedient enough? I rested my chin on one hand, leaning against the railing, watching Lin Yu pacing below, anxiously tugging at his hair. The warm yellow light spilled over his striking profile, so stunning it felt almost unreal. Just as I thought, he was so handsome I wanted to take him home and hide him away. He seemed embarrassed by my gaze, a blush spreading to the tips of his ears. Taking out his phone, he asked softly, "Senior, can I add you on WeChat?" For a moment, I was stunned. Was this mutual attraction? But then he added, "So I can pay you back for the water." My heart shattered. Still, it didn't matter to him. Why, flirting skills are top-notch. Once that WeChat was added, we started chatting a little every day. That IT had continued until now. Flirting was truly the most interesting thing in the world. That I especially loved watching him get secretly jealous, too shy to say anything about it. That he was just so unbearably adorable. Snapping back to reality, I smiled softly, breaking the silence on the other end of the phone. "The wind's pretty strong. You should head back to your dorm. Be careful not to catch a cold." "Alright." I was just about to head back, Lin Yu replied, but his frozen, shivering feet didn't move. Instead, he sat down on a nearby stone bench, hunched slightly, and lit a cigarette. The crimson ember glowed faintly in the dark, flickering on and off. His long arms rested lazily on his knees, supporting his body. That I stared, completely dumbfounded. This kid had this side to him too. Thinking about the pure and innocent image he had built in front of me. No smoking, no drinking, no clubbing. I decided to scare him a little. So I deliberately asked, "Why do I feel like I just heard the sound of a lighter on your end?" Lin Yu, secretly smoking, panicked instantly. His hand trembled, and the cigarette fell to the ground. That he quickly stomped it out with his foot, then pulled a tissue from his pocket, wrapped up the cigarette butt, and threw it into a nearby trash can. As he scrambled to explain, he said, "I don't smoke. That was just someone passing by lighting a cigarette." I replied coldly, "I don't like people who lie." Lin Yu froze, instantly realizing something was off. He looked up, and in the moment our eyes met, his heart skipped a beat. Flustered and at a complete loss, he stammered out an apology. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. I'll quit. I promise." I lowered my gaze at him, my tone cool. Smoking is bad for your health. That it's good to quit. Young boys like you, picking up smoking instead of good habits. I waved my hand dismissively. "Go on back. Lights out is soon." Lin Yu tilted his head up, staring at me with puppy dog eyes. "Are you mad at me?" I felt inexplicably confused and replied, "No, why would I be mad? If you like smoking, I can't stop you. That I just don't like being lied to." Hearing this, Lin Yu felt a pang of discomfort in his chest. "You can stop me." That he wanted to be controlled, to be cared for. Why wouldn't I bother with him? "Senior," he called out, stopping me as I turned to go back inside. "Have you and that person, you know, the one you like, made it official yet? Have you kissed someone before? I asked. Lin Yu instinctively wanted to deny it, but remembering that I hated being lied to, he changed his response. He kissed. Once. I widened my eyes in shock. When did this happen? Was it with a guy or a girl? Oh my god. My future boyfriend's first kiss is gone that I'm heartbroken. Lin Yu seemed to recall something sweet and his voice turned soft, like it was dipped in honey. It was with a very beautiful girl that it happened on my 18th birthday. He looked like he was about to elaborate further, but I didn't want to hear it that I was just a young girl who loved reading romance novels, someone deeply influenced by their idealistic notions, that I had an intense emotional purity complex, and in that single moment I felt like, maybe I didn't like him all that much after all, that I cut him off mid-conversation, said goodnight, and hung up the phone. Back in my room, I flopped onto the bed, completely losing my mind. What should I do? What should I do? I couldn't bear to let go of my little puppy boy, but at the same time, I didn't want him anymore. That it felt like my pure, white puppy had turned into a little black dog. Dirty. Lin Yu, clueless about my sudden change in attitude, tried calling back, but I didn't answer. Before tonight, he might have been able to comfort himself with the thought that maybe I was just jealous. But I had just told him that I already liked someone else, so it couldn't possibly be jealousy over him. Lin Yu spent the entire night trying to figure it out, and no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't make sense of it. The messages he sent received no response either. Frustrated and uneasy, he couldn't shake the growing feeling that not only had he somehow been dumped overnight, but that even our friendship was at risk of ending. The next morning, after a sleepless night, I showed up at the exam hall with dark circles under my eyes. After finishing one subject, I got up to use the restroom. Class monitor Jiang Yan followed me the entire way, all the way to the door of the women's restroom. That I found it a bit odd. Are you planning to follow me inside? I asked. His eyes darted nervously behind his glasses as he avoided my gaze. That he quickly took off his jacket and handed it to me. Here. Tie this around your waist. I blinked in confusion, several question marks popping up in my head, but he didn't explain, instead running off in a flash. Oh shit, did it hit me? I had my period, and I was wearing a white skirt today. Mortified, I stuffed thick layers of toilet paper in place, tied Jiang Yan's jacket around my waist, and returned to the classroom. That I started looking around for a female classmate to borrow a pad from. Before I could ask anyone, Jiang Yan reappeared, carrying a black bag. Breathless, that I took the bag, looking at it repeatedly. That it was indeed sanitary pads. But wasn't he being a bit too helpful? There wasn't time to think though, because the bell rang. One more subject to go. After the exam, I found Jiang Yan. Thank you for your jacket, I said. I'll buy a new one to return to you. He waved his hands quickly. No need. Then I'll wash it and give it back to you. Okay, he replied. That on the way back to the dorm, I transferred the money for the sanitary pads to Jiang Yan. That he sent me a cute emoji in response. That I chuckled softly and sent one back. When I looked up, I met Lin Yu's deep, brooding gaze. That in an instant, he masked it, his lips curving into a clean, friendly smile. Senior, why didn't you reply to my messages? Caught red-handed, I scratched my head awkwardly. That it was undeniably embarrassing, answering someone else's texts but not his. Still, I hadn't sorted out my feelings yet, not knowing how to deal with the fact that the person I liked didn't feel pure anymore. Seeing my silence, Lin Yu's heart sank further. He asked again, how did the exam go, senior? I thought of last night, staying up all night cramming, and closed my eyes briefly. Pretty good. I'm sure I won't fail. Lin Yu paused, his gaze lingering on my lips, before asking tentatively, want to grab a bite? Celebrate a little? No, I'm heading back to the dorm to eat. I declined immediately. That my skirt was still dirty. There was no way I could just go out like that. Lin Yu's eyes drifted down to my waist, noticing the obviously male jacket tied around me. That he didn't dare ask. That he didn't have the right to ask. Forcing a faint smile, he said goodbye to me and walked away. Back at the dorm, I half-heartedly replied to Lin Yu's persistent texts. The next evening, I brought along some clothes and a small thank you gift. Waiting outside the boys' dorm for Jiang Yan to come down. Just as I stood there, Lin Yu, on his way back to his dorm, spotted me. His eyes lit up instantly, and he jogged over with a bright smile. Senior, are you here to see me? As he spoke, his gaze landed on the gift bag in my hand, and his invisible tail wagged with excitement. Is this for me? How did you know today was? Before he could finish, Jiang Yan arrived, stopping in front of the two of us. breathless, likely having run down that I glanced at Lin Yu, then stepped past him and handed the gift bag to Jiang Yan. Lin Yu's hand, which had just started to reach out, stiffened and withdrew. The cheerful expression on his face gradually turned awkward. Jiang Yan, of course, noticed the strikingly handsome Lin Yu beside me. He gave a polite smile. Jiang Yan pulled 2 tickets out of his pocket, spreading them out in his palm. With a slight flush on his face, he asked, "My friend gave me 2 tickets to a concert that I think it's for the singer you like. Would you like to go with me?" I looked at the tickets and froze. Oh my god, they were for the concert I had tried desperately to get tickets for but failed. I wanted to say yes so badly, but rationality told me it wasn't appropriate. Standing to the side, Lin Yu watched, no longer pretending to be the well-behaved boy that he sneered sarcastically. "Just stand tickets, what's the point? Listen to the speakers, watch the singer turn into a tiny ant? Might as well go climb Mount Tai instead. Why bother going to a concert to count how many ceiling tiles there are?" I quickly interrupted him. "That's too much. Apologize to him now." Lin Yu stopped speaking, staring at me silently. His gaze was full of defiance and silent protest. "Why should I?" He refused to back down and, under my glare, turned and walked away without looking back. Left with no choice, I apologized to Jiang Yan on his behalf. "Sorry about that. He must have swallowed a bomb today. Don't mind him. Also, I can't go to the concert with you. I'm really sorry." Jiang Yan glanced at Lin Yu's retreating figure, his eyes flickering as if he'd realized something. That he smiled and said, "It's okay that I thought he was just a suitor, but I didn't expect." The rest went unsaid, but the implication was clear that I didn't bother to clarify either. After all, it was the truth that I did like him. Besides, if I didn't go soothe my little puppy soon, he might just get so mad he'd run away from home. Lin Yu's long legs and quick strides took him out of the school gates in no time. By the time I chased after him, he was already out of sight. That I called him, but he didn't pick up. That I spent the entire evening looking for him and finally found him near a bar just outside campus. Drunken Lin Yu, stumbling and leaning on a gorgeous older woman for support, was being helped into a luxury car. That I almost laughed out of sheer anger. No smoking, no drinking, no clubbing, never been in a relationship. Not a single word of truth. People always said the more handsome a man was, the less trustworthy he'd be. Today, I believed it. Those loyal, dashing male leads in romance novels, they don't exist in real life. That I flagged down a taxi. "Follow that red Ferrari up ahead." The driver, a seasoned pro, grinned. "Alright, buckle up. That I won't lose them." The car twisted and turned before finally stopping in a villa district. The taxi couldn't go in, so I squatted outside, relentlessly calling Lin Yu's phone. That I don't remember how many times I tried, but finally, someone picked up. However, it was a sweet, feminine voice. "Where's Lin Yu?" I asked. "Are you Lin Yu Sr.? He's not available to answer right now," the girl replied cheerfully. "Lin Yu, what are you doing?" I demanded, but her sweet voice was soon replaced by the beeping sound of a disconnected line. Without hesitation, I blacklisted every single one of Lin Yu's contact methods. As I stood there, fuming, a head suddenly popped up in front of me. "Ah, Anan, what are you doing here?" It was a wealthy lady I had met before during a spa session. That I quickly tucked away my phone and stood up straight, putting on a polite and obedient expression. "Hello, Auntie. I was just passing by," I replied politely. Auntie Sue beamed and took my hand warmly. "Come on, come sit at my place for a while. It's my son's birthday tonight. Lots of people and lively fun." I gave a reserved smile. "Thank you, Auntie, but the school gates will be closing soon. That I'd better head back. Happy birthday to your son." Auntie Sue looked a little disappointed but patted my hand kindly. "Which school are you from? I'll have my driver take you back." I hesitated for a moment, realizing it would indeed be difficult to catch a taxi here, then smiled and accepted. "Thank you, Auntie. I'm from a university." Her eyes lit up. "My son goes there too. You might know him." When she mentioned her son, her eyes sparkled with pride, her tone filled with motherly pride. "He takes after his dad. Handsome as can be. Since he was little, his closet's been overflowing with love letters," Auntie Sue said proudly. I looked up and studied her face carefully. The more I looked, the more she resembled someone I knew. Hesitant, I asked tentatively, "Auntie, could your son be Lin Yu?" "Ah, yes, that's him. You know him?" she replied, surprised that I forced an awkward smile. "Just acquaintances." Suddenly, I remembered Auntie Sue once mentioning she had a daughter as well. Could the girl supporting Lin Yu earlier be his sister. The thought made my toes curl with embarrassment. After a few more polite exchanges, I practically fled the scene. Once I was out of sight, I quietly removed Lin Yu from my blacklist. Pretending as though nothing had happened. After the exams, it was time for winter break. Early the next morning, I boarded a high-speed train home with my suitcase in tow, and my mind kept drifting to Lin Yu. After much internal struggle, I finally sent him a message. Happy birthday, that I meant to tell you yesterday. By the way, I actually prepared a gift for you, but unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to give it to you. It's still sitting in my suitcase right now. I blinked my eyes 100 times, but there was no response from the other side. Completely dead silence. Feeling cornered, I played my trump card. That I sent another message. Miss me? I'm on the high-speed train and really miss you. That it's 10:35 a.m. now. That if you don't reply by 11:11, I'll curse you to stay single for life. Maybe Lin Yu had some divine intervention, because he replied just 1 minute before 11:11. But all he sent was a cold thank you. Holding my phone, I typed and deleted repeatedly. Was his phone broken? Usually, one teasing line from me would earn a whole 800-word essay in response. Could it be bad signal? Maybe the rest of his message didn't send. But Lin Yu went silent again. Cold shouldering me now. I wasn't one to just take it lying down. With a wicked grin, I sent, last night, while I was out for a walk, I saw you at the bar. You were cuddling some gorgeous woman and got into a red Ferrari with her. It's been just 1 day, and you're already in a relationship. Since you're dating now, we're clearly not suited to chat anymore. Let's just delete each other. Lin Yu quickly replied with a single question mark. No, that's my real sister. He tried to send an explanation, but before he could finish typing, he was met with the dreaded red exclamation mark. Deleted. Panicking, he immediately re-added me as a friend. I and the verification message. He typed out a long explanation that I replied coolly with just one word, oh. My cousin's boyfriend once used that exact excuse, I added. Later, the mistress even showed up with a child in tow. Lin Yu felt that words couldn't clear things up anymore, so he called me instead. That's really my sister. Just accept my friend request and I'll send you a family photo to prove it. I pinched my thigh to stop myself from laughing and replied with a cold, nonchalant, oh. Lin Yu's voice turned somber. You don't believe me? Casually, I responded, sure, I believe you. Idiot that I had literally compared him to my cousin's unfaithful boyfriend, and yet, he still didn't get the point. Was the issue whether I believed him or not? The real issue was that I was questioning him as if I were his girlfriend. To tease him, I deliberately changed the subject, lowering my voice as if sharing a secret. Hey, Lin Yu, let me tell you something. The guy sitting next to me is so handsome, super well-behaved too. That he's coding something right now, and the way his fingers fly across the keyboard, absolute perfection. Lin Yu went silent for a moment, then let out a quiet through his nose, his tone completely indifferent. Acting like I was sneaking around, I lowered my voice even more. He just looked at me. Oh my god. He blushed. So adorable. Anyway, I won't say more. I'm busy now. Before Lin Yu could react, I swiftly hung up the phone. Switching my phone to silent mode, I pulled down my sleep mask and drifted off to sleep, satisfied and peaceful. After getting off the train, I stared at the 99 missed calls on my phone and burst into uncontrollable laughter. Feeling merciful, I finally accepted Lin Yu's friend request. Next second, my chat room was flooded, 800 family photos at once, and as if that wasn't enough, he even sent a picture of the household registration book for proof. Sitting in the taxi, I was laughing so hard I was on the verge of tears. The driver glanced at me nervously, probably debating whether to call the police. I coughed lightly. Sorry, sir, I'm not crazy, just easily amused. Noticing I hadn't replied in a minute, Lin Yu panicked and started bombarding me with messages again. Do you believe me now? Talk to me. Are you home yet? Be safe. I didn't celebrate my birthday yesterday. I drank too much and passed out. I replied first thing this morning that I wasn't ignoring you. Why didn't you reply to me? Are you talking to that guy from the train? Don't tell me you didn't go home. You went to the concert with that guy yesterday, didn't you? I'm a guy. I know guys, trust me. He's no good. Don't let him fool you. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The moment I got out of the taxi, I squatted down by the curb, wiping away the tears streaming down my face from laughing too hard. Out of pity for my little puppy, I replied to his messages. I didn't go to the concert. I'm home. Besides, I prefer younger boys. Peers aren't as cute. Lin Yu wasn't sure whether to be happy or worried that he had successfully scared off the senior, but now there was the high-speed train boy to deal with. during the holidays, I wasn't much for chatting, that I preferred curling up in bed with a novel. This only deepened Lin Yu's insecurity, especially since my replies to him were always indifferent and perfunctory, that he spent every day suspecting I was chatting with the train guy and had no energy left for him. How old is this boy? Is he younger than me? He kept asking, having read too many dramatic romances recently and it being the middle of the night, a perfect time for nonsense. I casually replied, "You're older than him." Lin Yu, too innocent to catch the undertones, seriously scolded me, "You can't date a minor. It's illegal." I was left utterly speechless. That I typed away furiously, "Oh, he just turned 19. That he has an older sister, comes from a good family, and he's pretty obedient, but he does get jealous easily, which is a bit annoying. Still, my parents like him a lot, and they've been telling me to bring him home when I get a chance. Oh, and his mom likes me too." Lin Yu's call came in almost immediately. His tone was dripping with jealousy. "Jealous boys are so immature that I think you should reconsider." I laughed casually. "It's fine. The main thing is, he's handsome. That I'm shallow." "More handsome than me?" he asked, his tone sour. "About the same," I replied lightly, shifting to lean against my pillow. That my tablet was playing a romantic drama, its atmosphere thick with love, while the ceiling above me carried the glow of a K-drama scene. Lin Yu's voice was nice, soothing, even that it made my heart itch. That I want to fall in love. But this big idiot, when is he finally going to confess? That night, I can't even remember what Lin Yu said anymore. All I know is, after a good night's sleep, my brain felt clear again. Who needs relationships? Flirting is the ultimate vibe. The holiday flew by in the blink of an eye, and before I knew it, I was back at school. On the day of my return, I ran into another campus legend at the school convenience store. Lee. Yeah, a top-ranking name on the campus heartthrob list. Rumor had it he was incredibly socially anxious, but looking at him in person, his appearance told a different story. Silver headphones draped around his neck, a dangling earring, tattoos peeking out. Nothing about him screamed socially awkward. Even stranger, no one had ever managed to get his WeChat, not even the professors. Remembering the bet I'd lost to my roommate Wu Mei over the holidays, where I had promised to get Leah's WeChat, I saw my chance and felt a rush of determination. While he was at the register, I casually followed behind him. "Excuse me," I said. "My phone's out of credit. Could you help me pay for this bottle of water? I'll pay you back later." Leah glanced down at me, his grip tightening nervously around a bottle of water, the same brand as mine. His voice was slow and hesitant. "I can set up a hotspot for you." After paying, I thanked him with a hint of helplessness. Leah gave me a small nod, then turned to leave. "Wait," I called, grabbing his sleeve. That he immediately pulled back, taking a step away from me as if I were some sort of predator. That I gestured to my phone and said, "Well, I just recharged my account, but I still can't connect to the network. Could you call my number for me? I want to see if my service is suspended." Leah stepped back again, pointing to the store's landline. "You can use that to make the call." Seeing him about to leave, I quickly stopped him once more. "Actually, I wanted to ask, can I add you on WeChat?" At this, Leah's gaze shifted past me, his stiff expression visibly relaxing. That I followed his line of sight and turned to see someone I hadn't seen all winter break. Lin Yu. His face wore a flawless, practiced smile. "Senior," Lin Yu said. "He's not a boy. He's a third year." Then, with a smirk, he added, "Also, bottled water won't work as bait for him. You can only fool me with that trick." Leah walked past me and stopped beside Lin Yu, lowering his voice as he asked, "You two know each other?" Then he added softly, "You're aware of my situation. Explain it to her for me, okay? I need to head home now. If I'm late, someone's going to freak out." Lin Yu waved him off. "Go ahead. I'll handle it." I stood there, utterly baffled. From what I just overheard, why did it seem like Leah was not entirely straight? Lin Yu glanced at me, smirking slightly. "Every word he says is vague, but it's clear enough. Don't bother trying to go after him. Girls can't win him over." I silently mourned for Wu Mei in my heart. This dish will forever be out of her reach. Lin Yu saw me lower my head and assumed I was upset. His face darkened as he asked, "Since when did you start liking the bad boy look? Didn't you say you liked well-behaved ones? What about the train guy? Did you dump him?" I blinked and smiled. "I've switched preferences. Now I like those who look rebellious but are actually obedient. Basically, the opposite of you." Lin Yu didn't say another word. He just turned and left. The next day, before Lin Yu himself showed up, the campus forum exploded. Someone had secretly taken photos of me, Leah, and Lin Yu standing together. On the first photo, Lin Yu stood behind me, his brows furrowed, looking dark and moody. That I was smiling brightly at Leah, who, in turn, was looking at Lin Yu. The timing of the shot was impeccable. The second photo was of me, Jiang Yan, and Lin Yu standing together. Perfect love triangle. Composition. The last photo, taken that day, was of Lin Yu sporting his new look, white hair, earrings, tattoos, and headphones. All present. That I had to admit, he looked incredible, but with the pictures came a storm of gossip. Rumors swirled with every version imaginable. Lin Yu, the pure-hearted battle god. Lin Yu's dramatic makeover for love. Luanen juggling 3 guys at once. Luanen, the heartthrob collector. The controversy didn't last long, though. Soon, all related posts mysteriously vanished. Lin Yu told me it was handled by Li's family. That I couldn't help but marvel. Wow, that's impressive. Lin Yu scoffed and said, I could have done it too. He's just faster. That lunatic moves at lightning speed. Oh. I lightly kicked the pebble by my foot, keeping my gaze low. As I asked, why did you suddenly make yourself look like this? Lin Yu's ears turned red, and after a long pause, he muttered, you said you liked it. I lifted my head and teased with a grin, I also like men. You like men too? Lin Yu quickly stammered, I like girls. Somehow, I managed to trick this rebellious-looking Lin Yu onto a Ferris wheel. What I hadn't anticipated was his fear of heights. The moment it started moving, he shut his eyes tightly, nerves kicking in. That I leaned closer to him and counted, your eyelashes are so long and thick, and they're fluttering too. Unable to resist, I suggested, hey, you should dye your lashes white too. They look stunning, then I'll toss you into a snowfield. You'd be the perfect ace beauty. Lin Yu squinted his eyes open for a second, looked out the window, and immediately shut them tightly again. His voice trembled as he replied, fine, I'll dye them. I laughed mercilessly. You're such a coward. How are you going to protect your future girlfriend like this? Lin Yu was genuinely terrified, too scared to even open his eyes. That I chuckled softly and leaned lazily against the glass door, finally asking the question that had been on my mind for a while. Lin Yu, do you still like the girl you kissed? In novels, White Moonlight, characters always have immense emotional power. That I was worried, unsure whether or not to pierce through the thin layer of ambiguity between us. Lin Yu, still with his eyes tightly shut, turned his head slightly toward me at the sound of my voice. After a long pause, he replied in a low voice, I liked her a lot. A sharp pang stabbed my chest. That I quietly took a deep breath, forcing myself to smile as I asked, how long did you two date? We didn't, he said, startled. I raised my voice. You didn't date, but you kissed her. Lin Yu, feeling wronged, protested. She kissed me first. It was on our first meeting. I was stunned. She forced herself on you, and you still like her. Do you have some sort of masochistic tendency? I was dumbfounded. You like forced love? Damn it. I gently turned his face toward me and kissed him. Lin Yu froze, his eyes slowly opening in confusion. Just moments earlier, as the Ferris wheel climbed higher and higher, his fear had triggered a physiological response. His hearing dulled, and all he could do was respond instinctively with a vague Now, he was utterly shocked. His stiff fingers pinched at his arm to check if he was dreaming. That IT hurt. The air in his lungs was steadily being stolen, but instinctively, he took control of the kiss. His hands found their way around my slender waist. As lips and tongues intertwined. Neither of us noticed the Ferris wheel reaching its highest point, where it kissed the rainbow-lit horizon. At the rainbow's end, the temperature between us kept rising, growing hotter and hotter. Feeling like things were spiraling out of control, I shoved him away suddenly, retreating to the opposite side of the cabin. That I fanned my face with my hands, trying to cool down. The abrupt motion caused the glass cabin to sway slightly, making Lin Yu flinch. That he curled up, too scared to even lift his head. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. So scared. But you weren't scared just now when we were kissing. Seeing how pitiful he looked, I carefully walked over and pulled him into my arms. Leaning close to his ear, I softly reassured him, it's okay, we're almost down. Taking advantage of his muddled state, I asked mischievously, do you like me more, or your White Moonlight? Lin Yu tried his best to process the question with his short-circuited brain and shyly replied, I like both. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost fainted. That I shouldn't have asked. Pushing him away coldly, I crossed my arms. Fine. Lin Yu looked up in confusion, momentarily forgetting his fear. Driven purely by instinct, he crawled closer, half kneeling on the floor, and anxiously explained, I only like you. I turned my head away, unwilling to listen, typical jerk, eating from one bowl while eyeing another. Just as he tried to explain further, the Ferris wheel reached the ground. Without a second glance, I strode off, not intending to say another word. Lin Yu quickly followed, grabbing my wrist. And then, I shook him off coldly. Who gave you permission to call me that? He lowered his head, looking aggrieved. Senior, don't call me that either. Lin Yu hesitated, clearly at a loss, before finally blurting out, Luanin. His use of my full name left me stunned. Fine, I sneered. Let's keep it this distant from now on. But Lin Yu wasn't deterred. He called my name again, Luanin. This idiot was making my chest ache from frustration. Lin Yu lowered his eyes, filled with grievance, and looked straight at me. I only like you. The girl who kissed me before was you. The one who just kissed me again was still you. You have to take responsibility for me. Just as I was about to step away, I froze for a second. That I looked at him like he was a complete idiot. At least make your lies believable that I'm innocent. And that was my first kiss just now. That don't smear my name. Lin Yu hurried to explain. It's true. I can show you. After watching the surveillance footage he showed me, I was completely dumbfounded. That it was from one day during last winter break that I had gone out with a group of friends for food and karaoke. Because I lost a game of truth or dare, I drank a bit of alcohol. That I have terrible alcohol tolerance. So my friend Fong Wei helped me to the restroom. That I and the footage. I came out before her, and right outside, I saw a ridiculously handsome boy. Without thinking, I lunged at him and kissed him on the spot. At the time, my mind was probably blown by the sight of a character who looked like he'd walked straight out of a novel. That in any case, I had no memory of this after sobering up. That in the video, Lin Yu had messy red hair and a cigarette between his fingers, looking every bit the rebellious bad boy. But after I kissed him, he immediately froze, standing there obediently like a scolded child. That he just stood still, staring at me dumbfounded. Meanwhile, drunk me was still unsatisfied, muttering, you smell awful. I really can't stand the smell of smoke. By the time Fong Wei came out, I had already done the deed and left. She seemed surprised to see Lin Yu standing there, blushing from head to toe. But then they started chatting like old acquaintances. That I paused the video and narrowed my eyes at Lin Yu. You two know each other. Why didn't I know this? You replied, she's my cousin. Oh, what a small world. And why drinking habits are terrible. And you're seriously a love-struck fool. I couldn't help but tease him. You fell for me just because of a kiss. Do you have some kind of problem? Lin Yu muttered quietly, only my girlfriend can scold me. Oh, in that case, I won't scold you anymore. I knew exactly what he was hinting at, but I pretended not to catch on. Lin Yu spiraled into self-doubt again, and after a long pause, he asked hesitantly, you really don't want to scold me? I kept walking and he trailed behind me the whole way, ignoring the curious stares of onlookers, repeatedly asking, can you scold me, please? Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I bought an ice cream cone and shoved it into his mouth. He's going to be the death of me. Who else confesses by asking for permission to be scolded? I couldn't handle Lin Yu anymore. For once, he stayed silent, quietly finishing the ice cream. Then, as if sulking, he found a corner to squat in and started plucking grass. That I turned my back to him, found another spot, and squatted down to pluck grass. 10 minutes later, we both turned around at the same time. Lin Yu. Luanin. We called out to each other simultaneously, pausing for a moment before bursting into laughter. Both of us were holding grass rings we had woven. That I slipped my ring onto his finger and smiled. Idiot. Lin Yu's breathing grew heavier and he whispered carefully, you scolded me. Only my girlfriend can scold me. I held out my hand. Hurry up, put it on me. Next time, remember to buy a proper ring. An expensive one. That I'm not just shallow, I'm materialistic too. Lin Yu couldn't stop the smile spreading across his face. Well, I'm not just handsome, I'm rich too. That we're a perfect match. Yes, I replied, amused. That I snapped a couple of photos of our hands with the grass rings and posted them online as an official announcement. Lin Yu's mom was the first to comment, my daughter-in-law has such pretty hands. That my son is so stingy. How did your mom know it was you? I asked, puzzled. And she didn't seem surprised at all. I shared my confusion with Lin Yu and his face immediately flushed red. Of course, he wasn't about to confess that on the night he was drunk, he'd spent the entire night calling my name, acting so dramatic his mom nearly disowned him. To divert my attention, Lin Yu quickly countered, How do you even have my mom's WeChat? I smugly tilted my head. Met her at a spa. Your mom really likes me. Lin Yu suddenly remembered a certain conversation. 19 years old, has an older sister, comes from a good family, obedient, a bit jealous, and my mom is satisfied. Realizing I'd set myself up, he dug the hole deeper, asking, what did your parents say when they saw my picture? They said you're handsome and look well behaved, I replied, and that I should bring you home soon to meet them. Soon as the words left my mouth, I realized I'd been tricked. That I glared at him, gritting my teeth, but Lin Yu was practically glowing inside as though there was no train boy. It was always him. She liked him. The one who'd met the parents was also him. He was so happy he could barely contain himself that he wanted to kiss me, and once the thought crossed his mind, he acted on it, staring at me with lips parted slightly, his eyes sparkling like a puppy waiting for a treat. That I guessed his intentions immediately and snorted, no kisses. The little puppy's head drooped. If I behave, can I get a reward next time? You calculated that it had to be Feng Wei, that traitor, spilling all my preferences to him. That's the only way he could hit all my soft spots so perfectly that I decided to keep him hanging. Next time, we'll see about next time. Lin Yu has truly learned how to misbehave, pushing his luck even further by calling me softly, baby. Aw. Don't call me that. I snapped at he quickly switched tactics. I'll listen to you. Sister. I'm going to lose my mind that you're not allowed to call me that either. Our sweet and sticky days together flew by, and before I knew it, the end-of-term exams were upon us again. This time, I had learned my lesson and made sure to cram early, but late one night, Lin Yu sent me a message. I can't study anymore. I want to kiss. I replied instantly, huh? He sent back a serious explanation. Studies show that knowledge can be transferred through kissing. 5 minutes later, I called him. Junior, I just happened to be passing by your dorm, wanna come down? Lin Yu pretended to be reserved. Why would I come down? I deliberately stayed silent, not hearing my response. He panicked and ran down the stairs in a hurry. Where are you? I don't see you. Taking my time descending the steps, I answered lazily, oh, I didn't go outside. Lin Yu sounded pitiful. Then what if I fail my exams? Didn't you study ahead of time? Besides, kissing can cause oxygen deprivation and make your brain go blank. That's not good for exams. No, kissing makes you smarter. It improves memory. I couldn't stop laughing. Sneaking past the dorm supervisor, I quietly approached the dormitory entrance from outside. Lin Yu, I called, covering his eyes from behind it. He froze for a moment, then his lips curled into a smile. Grabbing my hands, he playfully rubbed them against his cheek, almost drooling. That I pulled back quickly and warned him, just one kiss. This guy was way too clingy. Once he started kissing, he wouldn't stop. Every time, I felt like I might pass out. Lin Yu nodded obediently and leaned down. Just as our lips were about to touch, a flashlight beam lit us up. That a security guard yelled from afar, you two students over there, get back to your dorms. No late night rendezvous. Lin Yu reacted quickly, grabbing my hand. Run! We sprinted through the night, the dazzling stars above us and the beam of the flashlight chasing us from behind. That I laughed as we ran, telling him, this feels like we're eloping. Lin Yu didn't respond, pulling me into a hidden spot to evade the security guard. That I and the quiet darkness, our wildly beating hearts pressed close together. His voice grew low and husky as he asked, can I kiss you now? I pinched him hard, wanting so badly to scold him. You even need to ask? The mood's perfect already. Lin Yu, for once, acted smart. That he lowered his head and caught the scolding I was about to unleash with his lips. After a long while, we both pulled back, breathing softly, trying to catch our breath. Lin Yu, ever clingy, leaned into my ear and whispered, Anan, I really like you. This time, it was my turn to ruin the moment. With a mischievous grin, I teased, maybe it's just the suspension bridge effect. Lin Yu immediately frowned, denying it with a hint of irritation. It's not. I laughed, teasing further, then what am I to you? You're not allowed to be. Lin Yu seemed unusually sensitive about this. That he was clearly upset, his face darkening. That I pinched his puffed cheeks, trying to calm him down. Don't be mad. I was just joking that I like you too. But he wouldn't speak, his face cold, eyes refusing to meet mine. I'm sorry. Please don't ignore me. I cupped his face and kissed him repeatedly, like a little chick pecking at grains. After exhausting myself with all the kissing, he still wouldn't respond. Tired of coaxing him, I decided to leave. Just as I turned, he pulled me back into his arms, pressing his hands firmly against the back of my head and my waist. In that moment, all I could think was, great, I'm going to suffocate again. But to be honest, a postscript on our wedding night, I pulled out Lin Yu's collection of love letters from his cabinet. That I counted them. Exactly 999 letters. Lin Yu sat stiffly, hands resting on his knees, watching me nervously. That I smiled, rummaging through a drawer. Lin Yu swallowed hard, his voice shaky. Dear, the feather duster is in the living room. I pulled out a single envelope, glanced at him, and said, who said I was going to hit you? He looked up, dumbfounded. That I handed him the letter, suddenly feeling a bit shy. This one's for you. Lin Yu took the envelope, smiling like an idiot. That I picked up my nightgown and walked toward the bathroom, pausing at the door to glance back at him. Don't overthink it. That I just have OCD and wanted to round it up to an even number. But now it's odd again, he said, pulling another love letter from the drawer. I wrote this one. Want to read it? I refused flatly. No. Lin Yu didn't seem upset. Just grinned and asked, do you want to round it out for me again? No way. Not writing anymore. Right? No. Sleep, then. No. Lin Yu's smirk widened, a cunning gleam in his eyes. All right. Then no sleeping all night. The end.